Today I'm sharing a conversation from a recent episode of the Just Jenny podcast with Jenny Hutt. We talked about how our bodies change in midlife, the buzz around GLP-1s, and how we're thinking differently about health, food, and feeling good in our own skin within this season of life and during our 1,000 waking minutes each day. We experience 1,000 waking minutes on average every day. How are you spending yours? I'm Dr. Wendy Bazilian, and you're listening to 1,000 Waking Minutes. I can't wait to connect with you here with practical ways to eat well, move daily, and be healthy, to optimize every waking minute you live for a happier, healthier life. Thank you for sharing some of your waking minutes with me today. Let's get started.
I'm saying yes to better days, yes. I'm on my way, yes. It's gonna be okay, yeah.
Hello and welcome to 1,000 Waking Minutes. I'm Dr. Wendy Bazilian, your host. Today's episode is a little bit different. A few weeks ago, I had the true pleasure of joining Jenny Hutt on her podcast, Just Jenny, for a Wait Wednesday. And this was a conversation, and I'm going to air that episode for you today with her blessing. Thanks, Jenny. Now, if you don't know Jenny, you're in for something special. She's a longtime radio and podcast host. She is a smart, bold, and completely unfiltered style, and a real gift for making complex topics feel personal, relatable, and raw in all the best ways. She's had a long-running show on Sirius XM and is now bringing the same sharp honesty to her podcast, where she talks about weight, health, life, pop culture, her own story, all along the way and everything in between. It was a total joy to talk to her, and also kind of thrilling because we didn't hold back. We really got into it. From the rise of the GLP-1 medications like Ozempic and Mounjaro, to the realities of perimenopause and our midlife body changes that many of us undergo and are somewhat inevitable because of some of the hormonal changes, and how we think about health and nutrition now, not 10 years ago, not someday either, but right now, today. And what I appreciated so much about the conversation was that it wasn't one note. It wasn't oversimplified. It wasn't just a single take on things. We talked about the nuance. We talked about adding nourishing foods and not just cutting things out, a favorite of mine to talk about, as you know. We talked about cravings, about guilt, and the gifts of nourishing. We talked about the shifting metabolic changes that happen with time. We talked about our feelings, and real life. And Jenny also shares a lot about her own journey, which is so refreshing. She has her own major weight loss story. She has her own relationship to movement, and we talked about the complexity of thinking and trying about doing it right in a world full of mixed messages. Oh, and I have to mention, she's a fellow alum of my own alma mater, where we both received our bachelor's degrees at Tufts University in Medford, Massachusetts, which is right outside of Boston. And we were 1 year apart, no less. So though we didn't know each other at the time, we connected on many memories of our times there, before the episode, after, and a little bit during as well. And I am absolutely convinced, I think we are both, that we must have been in each other's company at least a couple times during our years there. Our conversation on this episode of Just Jenny fits really within the 1,000 Waking Minutes ideology on what we talk about. And it fits really beautifully because we touch on so many of the themes that we come back to again here, how we move through the minutes of our day with intention. how we live in our bodies and how we can do it with more compassion and clarity, and how we can collect tools that we need now and over time to live well, even if those tools might change or modify over time and adapt to us in our seasons of life now. So, a couple things to listen for in this episode. One is why it's not helpful, maybe, to rush to judgment when someone shares how they lost weight. So while we might be interested and we might, sort of jump to conclusions, they must have done it this way or this trend or that diet we've heard about, why we maybe shouldn't judge or jump to judgment, and maybe how we feel when others might do that or have done that to us. We talk about a distinction I make somewhat often here on this show, and we discuss the idea about resizing the body versus trying to become something totally different, and how resizing, whether it's for weight or performance, can be words that have empowerment and health inspiration and motivation, and how the words we choose are super important when we're discussing things like weight and health. And a fun story, a true story about how I learned from the very best. So I share how a mentor of mine, and I've mentioned her here, of 103 years young and still out there talking about health and wellness, an advocate for the wellness industry, how to find the exercise that you're least allergic to in order to build a life and a long, vital life with these choices. So let's get into it. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I had having it with Jenny. And I'm truly honored to have been invited. And I'm so grateful for Jenny's environment, her community, and for creating the space for these important and often complicated conversations. You can always catch Jenny on her Just Jenny podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Definitely follow her on @JustJennyHutt. And you can also visit her website at jenniferhutt.com. Subscribe to her, and you'll hear more of her candid and smart and refreshing real conversations. Now, my guest appearance on Just Jenny.
Welcome to the podcast on this Weight Wednesday. I have with me Dr. Wendy Bazilian, like Brazilian, but I actually prefer Wendy being, it's like bazillion dollars. I was listening to your podcast, and 1,000 Waking Minutes is the podcast. And I love that you're like, and I can tell you 3 things or a bazillion things, and it works. Totally works, and makes your name even more memorable. You are a doctor of public health, a registered dietitian, an award-winning journalist, and the author of Eat Clean, Stay Lean series and the Superfoods RX diet. So welcome to my podcast. And I want to get right into it because this morning, and I know you've done a lot of television, so you're no stranger to sort of the pop culture angle of all the diet culture and weight conversation and just all of it. And just this morning, I was reading that Chrissy Metz, who's a friend of the show and a friend of mine, and I think she's just a wonderful actor and singer and all that, artist, came out saying she lost 100 pounds. And then went further to say, and I did it without the use of a GLP-1. And I know that the internet is sort of, per usual, on fire about it with the naysayers and the cheerleaders or whatever. And so starting right there, why do you think, and what has been your experience in your practice, why do you think that people are so caught up in the method in which somebody loses weight or maintains weight?
Yeah, it's the bazillion dollar question there.
There
Jenny.
we go.
Just go right there. Go straight for it.
There we go.
I always say I have a bazillion ideas, not a bazillion dollars, but a bazillion ideas. I think that is such an interesting one because I think part of it has to do with us being sort of indoctrinated at, methods and stories and titles that are like, this is the way, here's the best diet. This is the way No, this is the way to lose weight. So people are always intrigued, and people who are health inspired or trying to resize their bodies, are always looking for a way or a hook. I find it, sometimes a little bit sad that we feel that we have to justify any of us, let alone, a celebrity out there to say how you did it or didn't do it. Maybe that's sort of none of your business. However, knowing that the next question is going to be, how did you do it? Or making assumptions, which I think is a little more dangerous. So people try to like cut it off at the chase by addressing the hard questions or what they can predict coming in. But I think it's baked into our society about the ways to lose weight, and it must be this way and that way. And we know that GLP-1s and all the niche therapies that are related to the drug-related weight is on people's minds. So they're making a lot of presumptions, and it's probably a protective stance, if nothing else. And I don't know her at all, though I love and respect her very much. But sort of, probably PR programming as much as anything to sort of say, hey, I'm proud, and I'm proud of how I did it.
And I believe her. And I also don't care in the best way, meaning I care about her health and her well-being, and I want her to be happy because I really like her. But I don't care whether she takes a medication or she doesn't take a medication. She gets to choose how she lives in her body, and whatever she accomplishes or doesn't accomplish. Again, I don't really feel it's my business. I've never been of the ilk that if somebody is a public figure, they owe full disclosure about everything at all times. I just agree. And
well, you're doing a great thing here then, Jenny, also, because it's so refreshing. Your Weight Wednesday, you're able to get into these questions and talk about it. And it's refreshing to be able to have a conversation and actually give the vocabulary like you just gave it. Because some people don't know not to judge or not to enter the conversation with a presumption. And you're giving sort of the language and tools to be able to say, oh yeah, maybe I should just be like psyched because they're happy about where they're at with their body and talking about it. And
I think, Wendy, I look at it through a different kind of lens, because when I lost weight, I lost 70, 80 pounds about 15 years ago. And maybe more, depends on the, weight is so fucking fluid, the number. So like, it's always, I go back and forth because one year it's this amount, the next year it's this amount, etc. But at the time, I remember people thought that I had had gastric sleeve or gastric bypass. I never had surgery. It just isn't how I lost weight. And I didn't feel the need at the time to sort of be like, yay, me. Because again, I didn't feel anything more or less than any other person who had lost weight with any other method. I just remember at the time being terrified when I first lost a lot of weight and was in sort of the quote unquote healthy body range, that I would gain it back. Like I didn't have a moment, or certainly not early on, where I could take a deep breath and say, oh God, okay, I lost all that weight. I'll be fine. It's never coming back. I'm good. So good. No, it was just sheer terror. And so I think that feeling of sheer terror made me really feel for whoever did what to lose weight, because it's just not easy. It doesn't matter how you get there. It's just not easy. And as years went by and different life events happened and different stressors, my husband and I separated a little while ago, and I, dropped a quick 10 or 15 pounds. Like I couldn't eat. I just couldn't eat the quote unquote divorce diet, whatever. And I just remember people like side eyeing me, because this isn't recent. This is in the years of the GLP-1. And it wasn't until like a few months ago where I just started taking Mounjaro, because perimenopause and menopause is kicking my ass. And that divorce weight started to creep back, right? So here I have this 100-pound weight loss, which is amazing. And it's starting to creep a little bit. And so I'm like, well, for the first time in my life, I have a small sense of relief that I have this this thing that could help me keep this weight off.
Yeah.
In a way that may not keep me up at night worrying, right? In a way that I still have to do everything. And I guess the lens through which I see all this is it's not a quick fix. The GLP-1s they're just not magic, because they're not magic for me. I mean, they're not magic for me. I would love to tell you that I don't think about food, that I eat like what we deem as perfectly, whatever that means, that my weight doesn't fluctuate. That okay, well, here's the thing. Like my weight went up 4 pounds last week on a GLP-1 because my period showed up after being gone for a month. It just said, hi, I'm back after, well, 2 months. I was a month late. And here I was like, finally, menopause. And it was like, no, psych. And so it doesn't matter, the GLP-1. I still needed to eat the noodles and the butter and whatever else my body was telling me I had to eat. And I listened to it. But the sense of relief I have that I'll never feel like it's going to get out of control because I won't let it get out of control. And there are resources for me that didn't exist years ago is like, I want to shout it from the rooftops. That's my experience, right?
That's great.
And also my
it's not magic and it's not a villain, right?
Correct.
The medication.
That's right. But it's not magic. And so there's this part of me that wants to sort of say to the people that want to malign anyone who chooses these medications to lose that weight. I just want to, like, I don't know how to say it every other way. Like, it's just not magic. They're not, yes, they're the most effective of these medications you can get are the GLP-1s with the least, scary profile, side effects, whatever. I know the side effects. I'm not, go to a doctor. Don't just take these wambly. Don't go to some back alley and get yourself a syringe filled with GLP-1s. No.
People were doing before. So it's nice to have something that's,
correct. And now they're peptides, which I want to get into with you also, which I didn't talk to you about when we spoke before we recorded this whole like peptide thing people are doing. Cause when it makes me think of HCG when people were taking that and then they found out that wasn't good for you. Like, don't do things that haven't been regulated and tested, people. It's just not a great idea. But my point is that, like you just said, we don't have to like heroify these meds and we don't have to vilify these meds. And I think just letting people do what they choose to do with their doctor's help without stigma would be really great, and enough of like getting mad at somebody who was plus size or whatever, as you said, reshaping or what did you say? You said something so good.
I said resize. I've always used
resizing.
I love to resize.
I love that expression. I've not heard it before. And I so prefer it to the sort of like, I lived in a larger body. Now I'm in a smaller body. Like it's the same body. I get it. It was bigger or smaller, but I don't know. I like the resizing concept.
Well, it allows for, muscle shaping. It allows for performance athletes. It allows us all to act in the same space because we resize for different reasons. And,
exactly. And I
think what you're saying, what I'm hearing is, what is a basic tenet of what I always talk about, that health is dynamic. And so you collect tools along the way. We've got a great new tool in the toolbox that can be medication related, but all the things leading up to now in your story or in anyone's story, when they've gone through different life stages, we're always dynamic. So you're never just, and hopefully that can bring a little peace of mind over time, because we can get so anxious that certainly when you first get the weight loss, there's a lot of anxiety, but hopefully that can be quelled over time.
Yeah. Well, but I'm telling you, it took me years, and back when blogging was a thing, I have blog posts from a year or 2 years after I'd first lost weight. And it was all about how I didn't feel like a weight loss success, and I wasn't going to feel a weight loss success until I made up numbers like 5 years in, 6 years in. And then I got to the 5 years and I still didn't feel like, hey, I've got this licked. And I still don't really feel like I have it, because what you're talking about, this idea that it is dynamic, that everything changes, everything's in flux in our bodies and in our lives. So we don't really know. Some of it does go beyond our control, especially as women can be water retentive and have no idea why. One food can work great in your body, and then 2 weeks later, it doesn't. It is the strangest thing, and cravings are real. And the older, certainly at 55, and we went to the same university, so I know around what your age is.
Trailing 1 year, just one small year behind you.
I wasn't even outing you, but I'm just saying.
That's fine.
I know, but like
proud of it.
I'm aware that some of it does sort of go beyond my control, and that there is this physiological response to the changes in our bodies and stuff. And so, yes, I do feel more now. There's a sense of relief or hope, because there are these medications and there's more stuff coming on the horizon, that if you want to fight it in a way that involves big pharma. Everyone's so mad about big pharma. And I'm like, well, we have a life expectancy of, in the 70s instead of till you're 24. Like, I'm happy with the big pharma that exists and chemotherapy, et cetera. But yeah, I just feel like everything keeps morphing for me, and I just do the best that I can. And
all about, our intentional living. So it moves away
yeah,
from how we talk about our bodies to how we live in the body, and
yeah.
that it does require us to adjust and adapt on a.
Like I always like I use. Do you take greens? Do you take any of the green stuff? Like probably not because you're a
Sometimes,
dietitian.
no, I mean, absolutely. I
Oh, you
dabble
will.
in all kinds
Okay.
of good things. Yeah.
Okay. So like I eat greens because they taste like candy. And I'm like, I'm trying not to eat as much candy. I don't eat Scooby snacks anymore because my kids are grown. So like
Yeah.
I do these little stupid switches that these have vitamins in them. For me, they make me happy. Do I need everyone to take? No, I don't care what someone else does, but like I like to use certain supplements, like, but few and far between. So like greens makes me happy. I eat it. It's yummy. I also don't make like superfood brownies. I make a fucking brownie. Like if,
Right.
because I feel like
that.
we get crazy. We make these calorie dense that we think that we're having a diet food because the brownie is made with 45 dates, 2 cups of almonds,
Yeah.
and like, I don't know, maple syrup versus sugar. And I'm like, well, wait, almond flour, calorie for it's way more calorie dense than regular flour. I know, glycemic index, I get it. It is more nutrients for sure. But if you want a brownie, have a brownie. You don't have to have a brownie that's 4,000 calories. Have a brownie that's 2,000 calories, right? Like
I agree. I think we over supplement and fortify our foods. However, I will say that I am very in favor of like logical swaps. So if you're like craving a certain thing and the greens, fits that.
correct.
It's not correcting, it's not saying instead of a salad, I'll have one of those. That's
no,
not
it's instead of having the 80 calories of straight sugar, I'm having the 50 calories or the 60 calories of fortified. It tastes like the same. This is the first like chewy gummy thing I've been using them for years that doesn't taste like ass. Like they taste like candy. They taste like the things my kids used to eat. And I used to eat them off their plate. But yes, correct. Sort of calorie for, right. Like not calorie for, but if it's a even swap in a sense, go for the healthier option. If you were in the mood, yes, for the thing, and you can tolerate the lower sugar and it tastes as good, great. It's my issue when you would be having a 400 calorie brownie and then instead you have an 800 calorie brownie because you may think it's made with the superfoods. You're not really benefiting.
I'm so surprised. I mean, I find that so many people who do that, they become sort of shocked to learn. I mean, you can talk up the nutrients. I can do that as good as any person can about what's in nutrient wise something might offer. But if you're looking at the overall energy or the portion that would be equivalent, and if it's like a lot more hassle and you're really not enjoying it, you might end up having the other brownie anyway. Then that is in my book, all the wrong reasons for going for that superfoods or whatever brownie. Although I have to say, on the topics of brownies, this is one exception that I will say. I will definitely check the box on have the brownie that you love the most, period. I also do have a really cool way of adding pumpkin into brownies, which is not intended to be sneaky. It's
different.
Not intended.
Hold on. That boosts the fiber content with few calories.
Fiber, it's moisture, and it actually cuts like 60 grams of fat. And like it really
Wendy,
does hit
that's
on
a good,
margin.
okay. That's a good swap. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yes,
that makes perfect sense. That's like making 2 ingredient bagels. That's like making, my daughter now loves making 2 ingredient bagels because she loves the taste. She puts she calls them cottage cheese bagels. She puts cottage cheese and flour together. She makes herself a bagel and she's happy and it tastes good and it's a little more nutrient dense than a regular bagel and calories are pretty close and it's great. This is adding pumpkin to something is only a benefit. I use egg whites instead of eggs in certain things. Of course, you can make oat pancakes instead of plain white flour pancakes. Sure, it's sort of not the disparity between the amount of calories is nothing crazy. And also it's just when people think you see like $1 million bars. What were those called? Those like shortbread cookies with the chocolate on the top, the caramel, and then the bottom.
100 grand? Were those
no. This is the one. It's like a shortbread pastry type thing. And it's made with like a Twix. It's like a Twix, but homemade. And people are like, well, make it with cashews and date syrup and dates and at the end of the day, it's more calories than the regular version. And you're not really getting anything, sugar is sugar. It ends up being sugar is sugar. So that's all I'm saying. But when you're talking about,
indeed.
How do you make those brownies?
I had to tease that in though, because it's a really good.
Please explain.
Yes. Well, in that recipe, you can take a commercial brownie mix. So, like I'm where you're at, where we all are at, it's commercial brownie mix. You have your homemade brownie mix. You can literally have the butter or the oil, even though I'm a big advocate of healthy oils in the diet. I can talk at length about that.
For sure.
But you have that and you put in the pumpkin and it boosts the fiber. And, 5 to 7% of us are getting enough fiber, not the other way around. So like 93% of us in America are falling short on fiber. It retains the moisture. It tastes delicious. And it cuts out 60 grams of fat in the recipe, which is monumental. What's that? 6 times 9, 500 calories plus out of the recipe in something that if you pass it off, and I don't mean to pass it off in a sneaky way, you pass it off, but people would be coming back for more because they're like, gosh, that's great. Then we'd have to talk about portions if people are working on their weight. Otherwise, have at it. Not my place to judge. But they're that, they're that good, and it's a solid nutrient boost and swap. Plus carotenoids. That pumpkin helps our skin health, helps our eye health, helps our immune system, and I think those are as important as the.
So talk about some of the superfoods, because I know you did write a book, Superfood RX, and I know some superfoods do really exist, and where I know blueberries are real good for you. Like certain things fiber is a superfood in general. And then certain foods have been recently very vilified, like seed oils. And I get confused because we can eat sunflower seeds and that's fine, but don't have sunflower oil. So talk a little bit about superfoods.
Yeah. So when I got involved with superfoods, it wasn't even a word. Like we sort of put it on the map. So the first superfoods book came out and I did all the menus and the daily plans for it and worked on the team that put out superfoods, which went like sort of blockbuster. And I was a little bit hesitant, to be honest, at like calling certain foods out as super. Like I had to like really write my own mind, knowing how important the science was and that all foods can fit. However, what I started to see is that certain foods had more research, were accessible, were convenient, were affordable, and weren't a one-trick pony. Those are components of superfoods to me that could be like a gateway to other foods that had research and support. So the blueberry sort of stood out because we had a lot of research out of Tufts, come to mention it, from the USDA Aging Center with great researchers there who talked about blueberries and memory and cardiovascular health. Well, blueberries are sort of like the benchmark of other berries that have their own unique traits. And we called those the sidekicks. They have their own unique traits, but they have things in common. Mm-hmm. And so the superfoods were really all those things, and they were real food. Come 15, 18 years later, since we were doing that, a lot of people use that term. And so a lot of people sort of get ornery about, a pill or bottle that's talking about superfoods, and they put in a trace ingredient at the bottom that's so-called blueberry extract or something that, is that really a superfood? That was never the intention with me, because I'm so vested in the evidence. And if you don't eat it, it's not enough to read about it. You're not going to get healthier. So that's where it all started, was sort of identifying. And what I found and sort of was surprised is that readers in a sea of choices, at the time it was like I remember this stat, 60,000 options in the typical supermarket to choose from. By giving like 14 of them at the time, and then we evolved it and there were like 7 more, and then some sidekicks, people could like start to see clearer, and I said, okay, I'm okay with this term. Now let's build it into an eating pattern that makes sense. How do you do that at breakfast and lunch and dinner? How do you get more oranges and citrus? Obvious things, tomatoes and other lycopene sources. How do you get these foods and their sidekicks into and married into a diet in the best ways?
I know you're saying diet isn't actually how we eat. Yes, you talk about that in your podcast too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That how we can manage our weight, manage our energy, manage our performance, manage all these things and feel happy about it. So, that's where it all came from, really. And I still stand tall on the superfoods idea, even though, oh man, it's gotten really,
Well, no, well, I think your intention is right. Your intention is, look, this is what you eat every day, right? You have a set amount that your body consumes. You're going to eat your breakfast, you're going to eat lunch, you're going to eat dinner, whatever it is, the way that you eat. Why not try to incorporate the foods that are better for you, that we know are going to do right by your body? If you can do that, there's no harm in doing that. That's only sort of a beneficial idea.
Positive.
It's not hocus pocus.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it became a very positive era because it was right when some really important research was coming out. And now, thankfully, a lot more. It was coming off the cut fat. It was still happening. Cut fat, or the intermittent. We keep going back and forth with the cut fat, cut carbs, cut whatever, cut salt, all that. It was a time when some important research was coming out, looking at the idea that the nutrients on your plate may be more important than the nutrients you're trying to get off the plate. And so I was just trying to add layers. I was saying, do more of this, add this.
I think people still don't really understand what that's about. And actually it ties into where we are societally, because we're back sort of on the thin train, it seems, because of the meds, this sort of the dark side of that we're in this direction of Twiggy is best again, which again, that's not my direction. It's just like this weird societal shift that's happening again about that's sort of not, I don't know, beauty at every size right now. It should be, but we're a little bit overcorrecting, and this is trends. This is what happens.
Yeah.
But to your point, and I've been saying this all along, even with the emergence of the GLP-1s, nutrition is as ever important, if not more. And a dietitian like you is crucial, because especially if we're consuming fewer calories, then shouldn't those fewer calories be foods that matter and foods that do benefit us? And the idea of adding in makes total sense, because what you add in makes your body work more efficiently.
Right.
So why not put in the things that are going to benefit us overall?
What the GLP-1s and that category of medication has done for me and how I've been working with clients is interesting, because I used to say, I guess I would still say this, if I could, someone who is looking to resize their bodies and they're like unhappy with their weight, or maybe they're suffering from joint issues or blood sugar issues, whatever it is that starts that journey.
Yeah.
Usually, often I'll get to a place where I say, well, first of all, I'm a no judgment zone. I'm like not the tough love. You do not get that with me. So people who just say like, lay it on me, doc. I'm like I'm like averse to that. I'm like,
I get it.
I'll give you a hug on that one. But I will say, sometimes if I could give you your weight loss or that resizing this second, but you would have to commit for every pound or however we're measuring it, inch, whatever, that many weeks plus another one of commitment to doing the work, but I'll give it to you today, then I would, that it would feel like magic. And I feel like this is about as close as we can get to that, because like you said before, you can't not do lifestyle with the GLP-1s. It is very clear right now that when you're on this, and if you have reduced appetite, your every bite matters more.
Counts.
Because you're eating
muscle,
less.
maintaining lean muscle mass.
The intake, the quality of what's on your plate is really probably important. Even more important.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
This is a tool, not the solution.
Correct.
So that's super important, and I think that's sort of how I think about this when I'm working with people who are intrigued or starting on a course with their doctor.
And the idea of adding in foods is also because that can help. Oddly enough, it can help you end up in a better calorie deficit, because the food that you're eating is supporting your efforts to feel satiated with fewer calories, because fiber takes up space in your belly and protein sustains you longer. And therefore, maybe if you eat those two foods, you'll have fewer inclination, or you'll have less inclination to eat more sugary carbs or whatever is the thing that is your poison, fewer potato chips. You'll eat fewer
And we
potato
become what
chips.
we practice. So it gives you time to practice those things too, which I think is a nice thing about those kinds of tools.
By the way, practice is a real that I not turned myself into an exerciser 6 years ago, I would not believe, and I've exercised on and off forever. I mean, forever. Yeah. It's not that I wasn't an exerciser, but I was the kind of exerciser that, and my listeners know this since I started on air, that to move my body was pain, to move my body was emotional torture, to have to exercise as a purpose of exercise made me want to die. It was the very worst until something clicked in my brain and I realized it was actually the key to my feeling okay. And psychologically, okay, I'm not talking about, sort of the physical benefits. Sure. And little by little, I retrained, and it is a practice, myself to move every day. And that was 6 years ago. And now I maybe one day every 30 comes around that I don't move, but it's like brushing my teeth. Taking steps is brushing my teeth. And it's not about the number of steps. Like, I know that's arbitrary. It's just movement. It's the movement for me is so key to my overall sense of being okay in my mind. And
so good.
But
it's it's linked chemically also. So, I mean,
that's what I mean. Well, that's
perk.
where it is. No, but that's where it is. I said, I'm going to give myself 30 days. When I started, I said, I'm giving myself a month of every day doing something that's movement. I don't have to sweat. I don't have to care what it is, but I have to move. I can find joy while I'm doing it. I have to move my body. And it now is like brushing my teeth. I don't, I really, unless I'm sick, unless there's a reason, unless there's there something that makes me really unable to do it. I have to do it for my brain to like.
You start craving.
I crave it. I crave movement, which is the opposite of like the who that I was for most of my life. And so I understand this idea of practice. If the practice is eating vegetables and the practice is adding in things that we know are going to be good for your body, that's like everything else. It will eventually become like brushing your teeth.
Yes. Yes. Well, let me share something funny, interesting, maybe. No, well, it is fun, but this part's funny. But what my basic tenets that I've talked about in my practice for over 20 years is eat well, move daily, be healthy. And they were very specific because move daily is exactly what you said. Does exercise on purpose? Does intensity matter? Of course it does. If you're running a marathon, do you need to, work out on a certain schedule? Absolutely.
Not my dream.
The move daily has no rules,
Right.
But the funny thing is that one of my many mentors, the so-called godmother of the spa and wellness industry. She just turned 103 a couple days ago. Her name is Deborah Zeke. She still lectures. She's still out there doing it. Founder of Rancho La Puerta and Golden Door, who I've known.
Oh, I know her. I went to Golden Door when I was a child. I loved Golden Door.
For many, I've known her. I worked for her in a variety of capacities. Lots of great stories.
She is the sort of OG. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what she said to me one night? We were doing what we called. My husband and I were leading a week-long retreat at Golden Door, and we did evening talks every night. And one of the nights we invited her to talk with us, and we called it a trialogue. I don't know if that's a made-up word or not, still to this day, but it was three of us having a conversation around a said topic. And we were doing our preparation, and I already had known Deborah and worked with her in a totally different discipline also, but in the destination spa world. I had been with her for 5+ years, but we were doing some pre-talks, and I said, Deborah, why did you originally put all these daily choices for guests who come to Rancho La Puerta and Golden Door? And for those of your listeners who may not know, it's a place you go live for a week, and every day there's 15 to 39 different classes you can do that are fitness, and then there's spa, wellness, there's nutrition, there's eating, all these things. But I said, why did you put so many? And, there's a tendency, especially in your younger self, to almost put the words in the mouth, like, I know what she's going to say. But I sat back because she's a woman of wisdom and she's the founder. And I thought what she was going to say, of course, was because I wanted guests to find the exercise they loved. I wanted them to find it. That's what I thought she would say. Instead, she turned it on its head. And to this day, I use this. I'm going to say this to you today, and I hope it connects with some of your listeners. She said, I wanted guests to find the exercise they're least allergic to and then do it every day.
I love it. And I agree with that philosophy. That it works.
We don't inherently, I mean, athletes love exercise. You love it because, what it gives you and grants you now that you practice it.
But I have to do that. My brain is so weird that there are days that I will get on my treadmill and I'm like, I can't be on here another second. I got to get the fuck off this thing. And then I get on my little mini stepper that changed my life. So my shout out to Kim Shapiro, who sent me, told me I needed this teeny tiny $100 little non-electric stepper. Changed my life. I can jack up the resistance, take it down. I watch it's like a mini elliptical. I watch television on it. And I have a much easier time consuming junk content while I'm moving than sitting on the couch. It's great.
No guilt, right?
No guilt. It's great. No guilt. I can watch hours of television while I'm on my stepper. It's fantastic. And I don't know. It's like, I find the thing that I hate the least, depending on the day. And sometimes I have to go through 4 different tries of different equipment or different methods of moving. Sometimes it's dancing. Sometimes it's actually trying to learn a TikTok dance in this old lady body. And but that works. And that's movement. And I sweat. It makes me sweat because my brain is working. My body, I don't know how to kick or, step like that. And so I'm not a dancer. And so, but you're right. It's sort of the thing that you're least allergic to is so fair. She is correct. And that golden door is, I mean, I used to go with my mom and my sister when we were kids. And then I went a couple times as a grown up. It's a very special, it's a very, very special place. If you get to go there, it's so special. And but she really knew. She was really one of the original people who really had the right idea of the concept of what wellness should be, because it's all of it. It's your mind, it's your body. We're learning, and she had certainly meditation and all that long before other people talked about it, but the mind-body connection and lessening our stress. And I know people are like, oh, because cortisol. It's not really, I think our bodies are just so responsive to what we tell them. Mm-hmm. So I don't even know that it's exactly cortisol. I think it's more the idea that if your self-talk, even on a subconscious level, is my body's going to be crappy and it's not going to work right, then it might not work right.
Yep. But I just did 2 episodes on criticism on my podcast, like sometimes when we self-critique versus changing the internal dialogue. I don't know how to say it. And, the hormonal shift is not to minimize it, because that physiological shift is real, especially around the perimenopausal, menopausal period. And it can make you feel like you're doing everything wrong or right at a given moment. But the thing is that hormones are there for a reason. They're supposed to go up and down. They're just not supposed to be peaked all the time. And we can do things to help them along in our dynamic state. So there's biology, and then there's intention, just like you said, and that you can shift the messaging. So it's not to diminish, because some people, I'm sure, are swearing like, it's my hormones. Let me have my hormonal reason.
No, that's real. I'm not diminishing because I'm living it. I mean, I can't.
Yes, exactly.
I didn't, our generation, at least mine with my mother, she didn't talk about menopause. She had a prophylactic hysterectomy and she went on Premarin, and it was nothing was really discussed. We knew she would sometimes feel crazy, but nothing was really discussed. It was sort of more like the curse of the period. And then menopause, it was more that she was either unhinged, which meant she was quote unquote hormonal, but nothing was really ever explained. And as I go through it myself with my son who's 26 and my daughter who's 24, like we get into the nitty gritty. Like I want to explain how weird it all is so that there's an understanding of biology. Like it is weird. And
you're lucky. I mean, you're lucky now or your kids are lucky, especially because it is becoming something that we will talk about, and that we are talking about. You're seeing it in the media. It's not as stigmatized, even though in the workplace, I'm giving a talk in about a month in a workplace setting. And it's tricky to, people want to listen, but they don't want to say the words because there's still that perception of,
I know aging and are we relevant and do we matter and can we be visible
yeah.
post periods?
And
And
our
it's like,
reactions, I mean, think about it we're working with men and women, and if
yeah,
women somehow admit that they're in a menopausal stage or show it in some way, then are their reactions to certain, um,
yeah,
responses to meetings, are they
right.
perceived as unhinged because of that? Or
Yeah,
are
sure,
they
for
really
sure.
good points,
Yeah, well,
because
honestly, it's a superpower. So I actually think, I mean, I've said also for years, like sometimes I think PMS is a superpower when you just don't give a fuck about anybody's response. And the same thing when you have a decrease in estrogen and nothing protecting your brain and telling your brain to calm down and soothe others, that's actually a superpower. That's how men live. And so like, how cool is that to just not care about how somebody's going to react when you make an actual good point in a meeting or right. Or say the thing that needs to be said. But
yeah,
no, I really am so appreciative that women are talking more about it. I talk about it too much, but only because I can't believe what my body's been going through. I can't believe what the past few years have been like with my periods. It's so weird. Like it's
mm,
so distressing, and that's not talked about enough. Like how sick I feel when my period shows up.
yeah,
Like I can't wait for it to all end because it
yeah,
takes me out. Why should it take me? Because that's a physiological response that some women have at this age. Like that's just real. And if we don't, I mean, if we shroud it in secrecy and we don't share it, then I think that's cruel because then,
oh, I think so too. I
women are
think the
feeling
fact that you're talking about
crazy
it is great. Yeah,
that they're feeling like they're the only ones. Like I'm the most competent, non lazy, get up and go, get shit done type of person. Like that is how I'm wired. I get my period. I want to crawl up in a ball, not leave my house until it's over. I can't, I feel so sick from head to toe. It's just real. There's little I can do until it ends. So I can't wait for it to end, knowing that it's good for me to still have it at this age. I still need it to end. And
yeah.
and I'm gonna talk about it because that's fair.
Good
Like
that you're doing that, because it's giving that I'm not alone feeling to so many
yeah,
people. Our culture, the sort of Western, if we can just broadly generalize, but our sort of American culture really does shroud that more than other cultures. So, I mean, not to go deep into a deep cultural dive, but other places in the world don't look at menopause the same way, or don't even have words for it, because not because they um, uh, eliminate it, ignore it, but because it's a next life stage and it's more of a shared
yeah,
experience. Just like
yeah,
breastfeeding in America is still very isolating
yeah,
for women,
yeah,
unless someone joins a group or is of a different cultural origin that has internal groups that they can rely on. Around the world, that's a very common thing for people to experience and go through together. And I think menopause and perimenopausal period is so would so benefit from that. And I think that
yeah.
there's quite a bridge to get there, in our
No, we're at the
society, just
beginning.
because of, we're
Yeah.
just starting to
We're
open talk
just at the
about it.
beginning of the conversations. Yeah, there's still a little too much to me emphasis on like staying sexy after menopause. Like how long do I have to fight to be sexy? Like, can I just be? There's this, it's just exhausting. And that,
Oh,
but it just still exists for women. We have to constantly, I don't know, be morphing into, and I'm right there doing it. I might complain about it, but you will not see me have a chin hair. I'm gonna
taking
get
care
a
of,
neck
taking
lift.
care
Like,
of the things that are important to yourself is
mhm.
not, succumbing to a societal norm.
Also
I
that
really
too,
don't,
for
I don't
real.
think so.
I agree. No, I agree with you. I'll never have gray hair because I will not. It's a choice and
Yeah.
that's mine. But
Yes.
you have such a great energy, Wendy. You are so
Thank you.
open and clearly don't have judgment. You are obviously a very smart, kind soul. And I think people will benefit from listening to 1000 Waking Minutes, which is your podcast. And how can they work with you? Can you work with people virtually?
Yeah, I do. I've had a long, sort of interesting path, as we all do in our careers, and I work virtually with individuals all over the world. So that I'm pretty good at time zones.
Mhm.
Even my Chilean friends, who have sometimes a 3 hour difference, sometimes
Yeah.
four, and sometimes five, depending on
Amazing.
what week we're on.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I work virtually. I work in person. Sometimes I travel to individuals. Sometimes we do retreats,
Oh,
so
that's so
sometimes
nice.
I do private or I create retreats at different places. And so there's a variety of ways. I'm just not a one size fits all type of gal. So, because we're all unique. But I work with individuals. And then I just really hope that my podcast has become a forum for community. So it's small. It's not like yours, Jenny. It's growing, but I feel like it's an environment that can build community where conversation can start to happen, even though it's broadcast out. As you all know, there's not the channel like you've had in live broadcasts in your experience. I have some ideas moving forward on how we can get a little bit more interaction and conversation going there as well.
I have no doubt you'll do that. How can people find you?
Thanks. Well, they can go to wendybazilian.com, and that's my website. And my last name is spelled just like Brazilian, from Brazil, but without an R. So wendybazilian.com. And people can email, I love emails, at 1KWM. That's like 1,000 waking minutes, it's a short acronym, 1KWM at wendybazilian.com. So pretty easy to find. If you probably could put Wendy Brazilian and you get to me too. So
And you do. Yeah, I
hard.
think you probably would. I think you're right. I'm at just Jenny Hutt on Instagram and TikTok at Jenny Hutt. And any questions or comments about this episode or really anything, you can email justjennypod@gmail.com. Thank you, Wendy, for being on the podcast. I hope people check out 1,000 Waking Minutes. It's really good. You're very soothing and smart and reasonable, all things that I like. And I really appreciate your talking with me today.
I'm so grateful, Jenny. Thanks for having me on your show. It was wonderful. Thank you for tuning in to 1,000 Waking Minutes. A huge thank you to our amazing collaborators, including our production and marketing teams, and Gabriela Escalante in particular. To the ultra-talented Beza for my theme music, my lifelong friend and artist, Pearl Price Photography and Design, to Daniel Ballantyne, Jen Nguyen, Joanna Powell, and of course my family, and everyone working tirelessly behind the scenes. And to you, our valued listeners, I so appreciate your support. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving a comment, writing a review, and giving 1,000 Waking Minutes, that's us, a 5-star rating. And please hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy your podcasts. Please follow and stay connected at wendybazilian.com. And don't forget to share with your friends. Your support helps us grow and bring you more great content. Until next time, find some simple opportunities to optimize those 1,000 waking minutes each day.
I'm saying yes to better days, yes, I'm all